earning attribution in your viewership. That's what we're talking about. My name's Nick. I work at a company called Flowcode. We make QR codes that are awful pretty. This is Bill Day.
My name is Bill Day. I work at a company called NAB, and we do consumer research to understand the way people feel about the world around them and then help you figure out what to do about it afterwards.
Where do we go from there?
That's it.
Flow codes are great. You guys need to try them out. QR codes on TV are the real thing. I'm going to quick give us some context. I was trying this thing where I put QR codes on TV like a year ago. And I continuously was calling buddies at TV stations saying, no, you got to try this. You got to try it. It's going to work, I promise. I used a bunch of different vendors in a bunch of different markets with a bunch of different use cases. I'll tell you right now that QR codes on TV work without a doubt. And then it's a matter of what QR code are you going to use. I happen to work for the company that gives you the prettiest codes, the most scannable, optimized for video codes, and the safest, most compliant codes that'll keep you, out of trouble with lawyers, which a lot of people are a big fan of.
I'm a big fan of staying out of trouble. Yeah.
Bill, my biggest problem when I'm calling these people saying, I've got this thing, it'll give you analytics for your analog product.
Yeah.
Digital analytics for your analog product. Why is it so hard or scary to go, okay, yeah, let's try it out. Let's do that.
So I think we're starting with a place that says the things that have made us successful and brought us to where we aren't necessarily the things that are going to get us to where we're going to go. And so anytime you introduce something new, like QR codes, into an established environment, an environment that's used to having 1-800 numbers for reporting or Nielsen data to tell me who watched whatever showed up on my television screen, or let's get crazy and I've got a URL that I'm trying to direct people to. Getting them to change that behavior is scary, it's uncomfortable, and they don't know who's in charge of making those changes. So that's often the challenge for any industry, but particularly for broadcasters. Figuring out who owns this space is tricky.
You are one of the people I called.
Yeah.
You said, you know what, I think you're right, that might work. And we talked about it over time.
Yeah.
I said, hey, it's working. Look at the analytics I've got from Milwaukee, McAllen, Monterey, other cities with M words. Where can we use this? How can we do it? You said, well, let me go drum up research and figure out what people are actually thinking about it. You guys don't measure results, you measure emotions.
Yeah, I mean, I often say we don't live in the real world. We live inside people's heads, the way they feel about the world around them. And as this conversation has bubbled up, we wanted to understand, how do people feel about QR codes? Were they aware of them? Did they see value in them? Did they know what they were and did they know what the use case was? And so we did research about a month and a half ago, right after the Super Bowl, and found some things that weren't terribly surprising, which is that the pandemic changed things. That consumers who hadn't interacted with QR codes, who had ignored them or thought that they weren't for me, were forced to interact with them at some point during the pandemic. About 70% of the consumers in our study told us that they used a QR code over the course of the last year. What was interesting, though, was that there's still big white spaces, because as we poked against, well, where did you use a QR code? Only 40% of those consumers say they used it at a restaurant or bar. Only 40% of those consumers use them in places that we expected to find them. And so I think there's real opportunity for greater adoption as consumers get more and more comfortable with QR codes. And I think the big example, I mean, obviously the place where you and I started getting excited and talking about this, and where I think it really kind of popped to the public consciousness, was in the Super Bowl, the Coinbase ad that ran. And so we immediately dropped research into the field, and we learned three things that I think are particularly interesting. The first is people watch the Super Bowl. That shouldn't be terribly surprising.
Wait. People are watching the Super Bowl.
About 80% of people in our study, 1,000 consumers in the demo, 25 to 54, no screener, said they watched the Super Bowl. But I want you to think, what's that experience like for most of you watching the Super Bowl? It's an unusual television viewing experience. It's not like your evening where you sit down with the television on. You're probably watching it with friends. You're watching it in a bar. You're watching it with people coming over. It's an unusual experience. So we thought we would see unusual patterns of behavior. Typically what you see for Super Bowl ads is that they're really good for branding, but they're not really good for activation.
And it feels like the Budweiser frogs were all brand.
That's exactly right. But what do I do with that information? Where do I get a Budweiser? How much does it cost? Why should I drink it, right?
Yep.
And so we wanted to understand in that Coinbase ad what happened. So 80% of people watched the Super Bowl. 36% of them scanned the Coinbase ad. 36% of the people watching the Super Bowl scanned the Coinbase ad. If that was a digital ad on a website, that's a 36% click-through rate.
36.5.
It's pretty remarkable.
I was doing the math while you were talking. It is unimaginable.
Unimaginable. We then asked them, well, what did you do when you got to the Coinbase landing page, the website that they directed you to? Now, for those of you who didn't do this, they were trying to get you to buy crypto. That's not really a high salience. They weren't trying to get you to buy burgers, right? It wasn't a 2-for-1 milkshake offer. It was come buy crypto from us, a company you've never heard of, while you're hanging out, drinking beer, eating wings with your friends, watching a football game. And 24% of the folks who got to the website did. They bought crypto on that website. The next largest response group, 34% of those respondents, told us, I looked around on the website, I got a lot more information, and I moved on. In other words, they did the next best thing for an advertiser. I got information, and I made a decision that was right for me. I don't need any more burgers in my life. Thanks for offering. I get it. I know you sell burgers. I'm going to move on. It was really remarkable what we saw there from consumers in an environment where we didn't expect them to engage, how high that engagement rate was and how deep it went down that customer journey cycle.
I should mention, as I was doing the Vanna White thing, anyone here can and should scan that code. It'll get you to a place where you can look at the research Bill's talking about. We're not going to throw numbers and present to you like we're in school. We're going to let you go home and do homework if that's what you really want. So anyone here can go and scan those codes. You'll find that research. You can like me or friend me on LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn friends and messages from them and everything about LinkedIn. You can also find a link to our podcast. Flowcode has a podcast. It's called QR on TV. Trying to be very direct. It's not a name that's very sexy, but it gets the job done. QR on TV works. Megan and I host that. Megan is heading our TV division, Megan Glenn from Flowcode. This feels like that. It feels like a conversation. We've done a bunch of those conversations on the podcast, and we've had people say all the things that I mentioned at the beginning of this conversation. Well, how big does it need to be? How long does the code need to be up? It's kind of ugly.
Yeah.
Like, what do I do with this? What if every spot has a code?
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be gross? Only for the ones you don't want to make money on. Like, put out commercials and don't put QR codes on them if you don't want to measure the effectiveness.
Yeah.
That was a financial institution guy. And I understand why there's a reticence to put up a big code on TV and take a gamble on it, but there's so much that you can give them on the other side of that. You go to other guests that we had, like Tom Donahue from Ground Truth, who, I call him Tom Donahue, buy pants on TV. Like, that's his thing. He talks about how you can hold up your phone, scan a code, and buy some pants. And while I think a lot of us probably have connected televisions, I'm never going to buy pants on my TV. You ever use your remote to just type in something on Netflix? It's disgusting. But I will scan, and I'll type it right here. This is a personal I actually have a phone. I don't have to pretend. This is a personal experience, and the TV viewing experience is not.
Yeah.
So we have these guests, and as I soft sell you guys scanning this amazing, beautiful flow code and going and listening to our podcast, I just want to say these conversations, maybe you have questions. We're trying to ask as many people as we can. A lot of them not clients, just broadcast people saying, well, what if we did this? And it ends up being a jam session. So I'm making this into a little bit of an ad for a podcast, but here we are. This is the time to do it.
Yeah. You need to drop a sponsor in there. Oh, wait.
I can't even think.
Yeah.
So, okay. There's a lot of different ways to use QR on television.
Yeah.
Magid has done a ton of research with different advertisers in the local sphere, in the national sphere. What are some of the ways you've seen people talk about that? We don't have a podcast that they can go to for you.
So I think there's a couple of things. The first is we've done some initial qualitative research, and that early qualitative research tells us that flow codes are about 2.5 times more likely to drive activation than a traditional QR code. So the design of the flow code, the safety that's built into it, and the fact that you know where you're going as you scan that flow code seems to be engendering consumer trust at a higher level. When we add that to some of the other data we're seeing in that space, it's clear that there are spaces in the current television landscape that could benefit from deeper engagement from consumers and making the path between what you want them to do and how they do it easier. So let's run through some easy examples. Your AC breaks, your drains are clogged, your gutters don't work, you were in a car accident last week. Anybody ever seen an ad for any of those things? Any of you work at a television station that pays the bills because of ads for those things? At some point, they're going to ask you to call an 800 number, go to a URL, or text for more information. The QR code is a better way of getting them to engage. It reduces that friction, gives the consumer exactly what they want. They want to engage with that advertiser to get the thing that they're looking for. I think if we think about the content side and the marketing side of broadcasters, we should be taking our own medicine there as well. And so if we want them to interact with us on screen, if you want them to download your app, if you want them to upload pictures of the storm that blew through, all of those are more user-friendly for the consumer than directing them to another feed, whether that's one of your social places, whether it's find your Twitter handle, or whether that's look you up on the World Wide Web. Those are all harder than simply picking up my camera, which I likely have in my hand already, scanning my screen, and letting the app do all the work for me.
It becomes a portal into a digital, realm that you get to build for them. And if you want to capture and keep their attention, you can give them things. You have to earn their viewership and attribution, though. You have to give them a reason that they would want to scan. Just having a code there, it does make it more likely that you get someone to scan it just because it's there and people have a curiosity. Coinbase, there was no understanding of what you were doing. It was just a code and we scanned it.
Yeah.
But if you tell people you get value from this, jump on in.
I mean, it's like having a phone number on your ad, right? It's a good start. It's better than not having a phone number on your ad, but you should probably tell them why they should call. You should probably give them a reason to engage with you. You should make it very clear what you want them to do. So scan here to set an appointment. Scan here for a discount. Scan here to get engaged with whatever's coming next. And I think that's the piece there that we're going to keep poking against, right? Yeah. What are those strong activation pieces?
So I don't know. As we wrap up here, because I'm getting the sign that time's almost up, we're happy to stick around if anyone does have questions. The thing I would say is, this isn't algorithms. This isn't lookalike markets. This isn't dish and satellite and cable combined to build our audience. This is humans. I think there's this saying that we've had at our company for a while. You can't accidentally scan a flow code. Only humans can do it.
I think this is the most interesting use case in the immediate short term for broadcasters, which is to use flow codes and QR codes as a way of measuring real engagement from real humans who are watching your broadcast in real time and using that to supplement your existing data sources. So being able to say to somebody, look, 1,500 people downloaded my weather app during my 5 o'clock newscast last Tuesday night, and here's where they were, is a powerful conversation tool that your sellers don't have right now. Because when your sellers walk in to talk to the plumber or the car dealer, they're walking in oftentimes disadvantaged relative to your digital competition. And so having that ability is really powerful.
I guess, we can leave it at Flowcode is going to keep doing QR codes on TV. We invited our competitors' television departments here, but they don't exist, so they're not sitting in these chairs. We're the only people providing QR codes specifically optimized for television. I've been Nick. This is Bill. Tip your waitress.